Alright, thank you for showing up again for another week of drawing with me. And we are going to do something very classical and very, art schooly and whatever you want to call it. We are going to do figure drawing. A lot of people are very afraid of figure drawing because they see the classic easel, naked girl on a pedestal idea, and it doesn't have to be. I don't believe in limiting yourself with that. So there is no reason to do that. There is other better ways and fun ways to actually do that. I could teach you the standard, girls standing or boys standing straight facing forward, but who is going to draw or paint that? It is something very static and very rigid. And if anything, you don't want to have any rigidity in your drawing and in your art. So we are going to do. Yeah, that's what you say right now. Okay, I've lost complete train of thought here. Okay, so we're gonna do several poses. Why poses? Part of it is because you don't want to have somebody just standing there like a robot, standing straight ahead of you, with the in the classic stickman pose. You know what I mean? Is very nobody's gonna watch that because it is just not interesting. Even because eventually what you want to learn to do is to recognize certain features of the body and put them down for motion. You want motion and flowing lines in your artwork. It's a little step forward than drawing portraits, but again, if you follow or use the guidelines I'm going to give you, it shouldn't be that hard. What we're going to do is I found a couple of reference pictures online that we're going to use. I'll put those on my blog and later on, or in the PDF again. So what we're going to do is first I'm going to go over the materials. I'm just going to use a regular pencil today, and I'm not even going to use an eraser that much. I'm going to try and find one. Here it is. I'm going to use a colored pencil to describe a few little things as we go along. So I'm going to use one of those. And again, just regular old printer paper. Let us get started. Okay, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my paper portrait size. Long way up. Short way, left to right, long way up. Okay, the first misconception of people who are drawing portraits or figure drawing is they instantly start grabbing the pencil like it's, like this, because they want flowing motions. My paper is big enough that if I put my you can't see that, but if I put my elbow on the table, I can swing all the way over the paper. Look at that. I don't need to hold it on from over here. I can just hold it like I'm drawing or writing, because again, this is the way that you've been taught to hold your pen or pencil when you start writing. You've been writing for years and years and years. This is the way that is for you most comfortable. Okay, first thing that we're going to do is we're going to draw a girl leaning backwards. She's kind of jumping, or I don't know how they took that picture. What we're going to do is we're going to look for action lines. And action lines is the ones that you look at and you go, okay, that describes the whole pose. So if I want to have a girl that bends this way with her legs like this, I'm going to make a line that goes like this. This will be my action line. This is the flowing motion that the whole picture has. From here we can divide it up if we wanted to. We can start putting the head on. Am I in the picture? I'm in the picture. Okay. With the elbow, her arm coming down like that, and I can make that arm all the way down to there if I want to, because I'm going to change it up. Okay, so we got a rib cage right here with a body like there. And the good thing is about figure drawing is it will give you a lot of guidelines while drawing. Okay, it'll teach you to look for landmarks. So this is it. It took me about 2 seconds. Okay, now we're going to clean it up. I'm going to make my action line in red, by the way. So this would be the line that we're working at. If I take another pencil and throw all the other ones on the floor, connected to my hair, believe it or not. Look at that. My hair is in there. Okay, I'm going to use my green pen right here to indicate a few guidelines. If the face is over here, I have her shoulders like here. Okay, her hips would be at an angle like this. If we transfer this information that we have to something that looks like this, okay, for any drawing that you start that has a pose, awesome, because you can lift your shoulders. You can raise one, raise the other one, don't raise the other one. But the collarbone that goes right here is roughly a straight line. Same thing as with your hips. You can move your hips up and you can move one hip down, yet they will always form a line. These are two guide points, guidelines, anchor points, whatever you want to call them, to go for like this. So if I pencil those two in, I can look at my model that I have right here on, and I already know that her elbow would be in the crook of her where her back would be. So I can make roughly another line go right there. Okay, if I start putting in the other little details of her body. And remember, we can always change that because it has no use, using pencil and not erase it as you go along. Okay, she's wearing a bathing suit, which gives us an extra guideline. Okay, and you can really see I was way off with my feet. So what we do is we're just going to change that. Put the arm in, and I already know that the crook of her elbow would be right here, and her head will be roughly about here. When figure drawing like this, or post drawing, or this is not particular figure drawing, don't get bogged down on hands and faces. What you want to get bogged down on is finding the right points of information. The right points of information you can find by studying your model. You wanna indicate certain things and leave most things, other things out. And as like we discussed with portraits, what you leave out and what you put in is more important than getting anything else, because sometimes it's actually better to leave things out. So if I know that her hand is right here, which is halfway across her thigh, then her calf would start right here. Her feet going like that. Okay, with her other feet luckily going behind it. Go like this. Okay, her other arm is behind it. So if I take a pen or a pencil in this case, and I'll just use the colored pencil to do an outline. You can see how fast I'm doing. I am not going for details. I'm going for motion, swiftness. And proportions is in this case more important than anything else. So what we're doing is we're finding landmarks. So this is roughly what I have on my screen. So if I take one more colored pencil, okay, with a post like this you cannot go, okay, 9 heads long, so, or 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because of this curve, it doesn't work that way. What you can do is you can go, okay, so the elbow is right here. That means that her hair is stopped a little over the elbow. Okay, so this will be the first one that you can check. She can bend all the way down here, and then there's a flat spot in the lower row of your back. You cannot move this out. This can only go in. When you bend, it goes the other way. So what you can do is you can find yourself those kind of things to mark it out with. Halfway across her thigh, it's from here to here. If you look at my picture, her hand is there, so I roughly made it. You know, her hand could be a little lower. Yeah, and from there the calf and stuff like that. Because there is no other points of doing it, you could measure it out if you wanted to, because you know where the thigh is. So if we know where the thigh is, we know that you can roughly, the knee is roughly halfway between the hip and the rest. Okay, so her feet might have been a little bitty bigger, but that's okay. This is how you check your drawing if you're doing it. If you want to see if your proportions are right. When figure drawing or gesture drawing, I don't particularly care much for figure drawing as much as I would say, you know, practice poses. Because you are more likely to draw something like this than draw somebody who's looking straight forward to you. The reason that you want to start out with your action pose is you're going to go like this. This will be the motion that your picture is portraying. Okay, if you want her the other way, start with the other way. Indicate shoulders and hips, because those two are usually the given. As in portraits, what we talked about, the facial or the eye line is the given, shoulders and hips. And if you look at it, her hips go up here because they're connected to your butt. So she actually has her bathing suit pulled down a little bit. So that's why my line looks kind of off. But this would be the hip line, and this is the shoulder line. It works for any pose you want. If you look at a different pose, my red pencil, I'm going to make a line right here for her shoulders and her hips, and I want to have a line that goes like this, and I'm going to have another line that goes like this. Can you guys see that, or is that too low? Okay, so if we use this as a guideline, I know that I want to have a leg go this way and I want to have a leg that goes that way. Hips, hips. You can see that where they made the hip line isn't, but that's okay because we are going to start from the bottom and work our way out. We're going to find ourselves this would be in between. This is where I want the hips to be, and this is where I want the shoulders to be. So everything will be relevant to this distance. She might actually be too big for the piece of paper, but that's just something you have to practice. So first what I'm going to do is, if this is my shoulder blade and this is my hip, I know that halfway somewhere roughly would be where her waist would be. So technically, if I want to have this arm go up, I know that her rib cage will show, and so will the top of her hip, which would be right here. Okay, because her hip, this one is kind of like this. Okay, with her leg going this way. you can already see that I'm already altering it. But anyway, so the hip line is right here. That makes her other leg coming out right here. Excuse me. Go back up. Too much paper underneath. It's not sticking. There we go. Like this. I know that her anyway, her waist is right here. If I know that this part is dented, this part has to move slow. If it has to move all the way out, right? I mean, she can't be dented on both sides. So I'm gonna go do this. She's wearing a dress. That is part of why I can do this. Okay, so shoulders. Now on her head, on her shoulders, tends to be the head. Whatever position you want it to be, you know. I don't want mine a little cocked this way. So I know that the other arm is going to be right here. Okay, if you take your elbow from your elbow to where your shoulder is, that's roughly the same size as your face. So this is easy to be measured like that. And then your elbow is roughly again in half of your arm. So I can measure that. So I know that her hands would be somewhere around here. Okay. So we end up with something that looks like this. And I will give the proportions on my blog when I do it. I am T. I am, am I? I am. Okay. So, let's give her a very classic pose and have her hold the other arm in the back of her, head. Okay, now how do you measure out the leg? Your elbow, from your elbow to the tip of your hand. So, this part to that part is roughly the same size as the upper leg, roughly. And then, you know, that would be the same distance, so her feet would be about right here. And again, as I said, I'm not looking for feet and I'm not looking for hands or facial features. Not important when you're doing this. What you're looking for is dynamic action in your drawing. Okay, because this part, basically her dress goes like this. Up here. Okay, so the other one is cocked. Yeah, these are roughly the same because her, if you look at the picture, her feet are roughly on the same position, but she's wearing heels. So what I'll do is I'll put in the hip like this, and this line, if this line is the same, this line will be the same too. That's kind of how it goes with foreshortening. Okay, so there we go. It's got a bit of a man calf going on right there. Don't get bogged out. If it takes you longer, I'm a little nitpicky with it at the moment, but if it takes you longer than literally a couple of minutes, you're overthinking it. Okay, you know, the rest of the proportions or not so much proportions, what's the word I'm looking for, is it this one? Yeah. The rest of the perspective comes from putting in the clothes. So if I take my my pen, it's black, and I'm going to put in some facial, some extra lines to make it easier for you. So you can see it better. And this is kind of a lesson that if you have an anatomy book, this will be the time to break it out. Not particularly necessary if you're willing to put in some work. And remember, I'm still using that line. You can see that because her dress is following roughly that line. Yeah. You can give her a flowy dress if you want. And you can see why I mentioned in the beginning that I don't care much for flowing lines, big swooping lines with my pencil. I'm a scratcher. Just kind of how things went over the years. Okay, these lines there is. Okay. These lines is basically where I want her eyes to be. If I was going to go and put it in, you'll end up with something like this. Put in some hair. Yeah. And because it is just a sketch, you can see things that, like, the arm is a little thick, maybe even a little long. Yeah, it didn't take longer than 5, 6, maybe 10 minutes. Okay, so this is the second post that we did, and instead of having one action line, it had two. Yeah, we used one for the hips. We used one for the hips that went this way to indicate that this hip is higher than the other one. We had one from right here. Jesus. For indicating where the shoulders went, and then I used this one to motion this motion, and I put in a different one for this one. Okay, you could even, if you wanted to, you could roughly make it into an X doing it this way, but you're gonna end up short at the knee, and it's not really flowing because there's a crack in it. See what I mean? This line, nice and smooth. This line stops right here, so you would have to have an S in it. So it's probably easier just to go like this and add the other leg to it. Okay, somebody had a question. Bring out the old one. This one. Let me do the question and answer thing at the moment. Okay, what I would do, if I take a different colored pencil, let's see, first of all, what happens is I drew both lines drew out, like this line and this line, they're both bulging out. What happens is there's a muscle going on right here, and there's a muscle down here, so you get an indicator of a dent, like this. I wonder if this one's strong enough to... like that. And her upper arm, of her lower arm starts right here. There's a big muscle going on right there. This part right here. So you can see that already makes her look kind of better. It is a bit of an awkward pose. So what you have to do is you gotta remember where certain muscles go or groups go. And if you look at arms, okay, arms are basically, there's a circle right here, you get an elbow, you get a hand. Okay, this is where the capsule is. This connects to your torso. Okay, here's where your elbow is. So once again, just like with fingers, if I connect those, I'm already there for 99%. If you want to really get into it, there's a bicep, and there's a tricep, like that. Your elbow goes like this, bends in, and there's a little muscle going on right there. That's why your bicep is connected to that one. Your tricep goes right here, so underneath. There's a muscle coming up here to where your wrist is. And this one is relatively straight. Now if you remember this, that there's a line that goes roughly like this, you can already see how natural that is. The top one, you can see how natural that curve is. This is where the elbow is. You don't have to learn all the muscle groups and all of that. I have on my YouTube, I have a recorded one that I did for the figure that is standing straight. If Darcy is not busy, if she could hook it up, it's one of her favorites anyway, so she's probably got it bookmarked. If you could, babe, if you could link that up for me, the proportions video, please. Okay, any other questions while I'm doing this before we go to a different pose? Awesome. Okay, let's go from to the next one. This one's gonna be another nice flowing one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make one line like that, and I want her shoulder to be about here, and I'm gonna have her hips this way. Okay. So what did we learn? If one part kinks in, the other one is straight. Alright? Okay. I also know that if this is her torso, you know, her leg will be going this way. Not sure if that worked. Anyway, let me know if that worked or not. I'm gonna have one arm going in and one arm going out. Stick figures. We've all drawn those before. This is how fast you... I have no idea. It doesn't show up as a link for me. Anyway, so this is kind of what you want to practice. You want to practice making your stick figure and blocking it in. Okay. So again, we have our lines. We have the big swooping line coming right here. We've got hip line, shoulder line, hip line. Okay, that'll work. Okay, might be me then. I have turned links on. Here, let me mark you. Alright, so if I have this, how do I clean it up? Okay, first what I want to do is I'm going to put my I'm going to fix the shoulders. They're relatively straight with the capsule on top of here. Okay, her waist would be about right here. I'm going to make this longer. So there's already, and if I have a crook, I already have an indicator. I know that, you know, I want to look at that. Now in a minute what I'm going to teach you guys is something more valuable than liquid gold in art. So hold on for just a sec, we'll do this after this one. Anyway, so we've got this part. We know then that this is straight. Okay, and she's wearing a bathing suit, which makes it easier. Her upper leg goes right here. How far is her upper leg? It's the same thing as your lower arm. So my lower arm is going to be like this. Her leg would be about that. And there is no other way of doing this but practicing. And sooner or later what you're going to find out is that there isn't a pose that you haven't drawn. Don't spend more than, I would say, 10 minutes per drawing, if that. Try to find yourself some pictures online involving ballerinas, because they do a lot of interesting poses. DeviantArt is another one. I got these off DeviantArt. I think they're face stock. Again, these are just the lines of her eyes and the movement of her thing. Okay, so if I take my black one and clean this up. There you go. Thanks, D. I guess it is proportions. It is not particularly, because it is. I have a proportions video on there. There's a link to that. That will give you the exact standard proportions of somebody standing. I'm more teaching about flow lines and what you call those, action lines, and making non-standard poses, because as I mentioned before, you don't want to get bogged down with just somebody who's standing straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to somewhat clean this one up and then use my eraser to teach the different lesson that comes with this, that you want to, that makes classic figure drawing easier, and that's kind of something that not a lot of people will tell you. But it is I've had not a lot of teachers will tell you, but it's definitely one of the better tricks ever. Okay, so if we have this pose, that's cool, T. Okay, so if we have this, and you wanted to draw something like this, what I would do, and a lot of other artists do that too. If you want to do the classical thing, okay. First of all, what you can do is there is something called negative space. If you look at this, what the negative space would be is anything that isn't figured. Really, it is that simple. Now, if you look at it, you can see there's a lot of it. But if I break it down, look at that. Yeah, I know what you mean, Giovanni. Let me come back to that in a second. This is negative space. Okay, if I take another piece of paper and I'm going to use my knowledge of, can you guys see both? Yeah, you can. Okay, if I take my knowledge of negative space, I can, instead of drawing the figure out, what I can do is I'm going to look, okay, there's a triangle right there. Okay, so we know that the head will be here. This line, it's this line. I'm drawing this shape now instead of this shape. So I have a thing goes right here. Okay, I skip a little bit, and there is a kind of like a trapezoid shape right there. Then there we go. This is where the elbow is. So her other arm or her hand would extend this way. Alright? There's your other indicator line. We go that from here, we know that this line is almost straight. And so is this one. Hello. This is exactly where her, what you call it? Top of her foot is, isn't it? Like that. And up a little bit, but that's besides the point. So there's another one right here. We know that this part, look, that's roughly in half. Opa, there we go. So we've got her leg already roughly in the same position. There's that. If I go from over here again, where her head is right here, there's this shape right there. If you look at it, if I extend this one, that's where her arm is going to be. This shape and this shape. This is where her hand is, isn't it? With the hip line right there. You get like that. So then again, if I take my black one again, I can then start doing the same thing as I did with the other one, because I already have most of the landmarks that I already had with the other one, didn't I? Put your hand right there. And yeah, granted, she might, come out a little different, but as you can see, it is faster to draw the negative space sometimes than it actually is to draw the figure. And that is a very good thing to remember, because if you're stuck in time for whatever reason, stuck with time, not in time, because that would be bad, and you look at it, what I did is I just took the same negative space shapes that on this one, that I found here. So, negative space, negative space. Negative space is definitely your friend when you're doing live drawing, because it is easier to recognize these shapes. I mean, it is easier to draw a triangle than it is to go like that. You know, the lines will stay the same, like that. There we go. Alright, does anybody else have a question? Thank you. Let's see. Who else has asked about the lines? Giovanni asked if action lines is the lines that you put behind a figure in motion to show motion. Yes, that one too. If I take my pencil and I draw something round. It is a stationary thing, right? Was it T? It's a stationary round thing. It becomes a bouncing ball. I take these out. The same ball becomes stationary again. And all of a sudden your eye perceives motion. Now, in figure drawing, it's not the same line, the same idea. These are just indicator lines or motion lines, not motion as in action, but motion as in flow lines, whatever you want to call it. Hips and shoulders. Yeah, I might go a little too fast, but at the end I will slow down and then just ask if you have a question. I have one more if you guys are interested in. You know, we can do something that has cloth on it. Direction lines. There you go. Okay, if I easier it is for yourself the more guidelines and landmarks you can give yourself, the easier it is. We talked about this in portraits. If you take somebody like a 2-year-old who has no lines in his face, it's going to be hard to draw because you can't find the right directions. Now if you have somebody who is 80 years old and is nice and wrinkled, and you can use those wrinkles to measure yourself out. If you I tend to do the lines indicating the flow line, or the motion line, and then the hip and the shoulder line first, if I have to draw somebody out real quick, because it without actually having the model then again in front of you, you know which way she was posing. Stick figures are your friend. If you need to do something quickly, or even if you don't have to do it quickly but you want to see if the proportions are right, use a stick figure and go from over there. But if you draw a stick figure, you can start with the head, I don't mind. It's probably not the best way to do it though. So if you want to draw a stick figure of a guy picking something up, okay, what you want to do is you go back, leg, foot, arm, 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 picking something up, head down. Okay. From here you have to flesh it out. So you get your motion line, shoulder, hip, because one hip is cocked up because he's got to go and lean in. So you could try, you could just make your stick figure and flesh it out. Okay, the next figure, the last one I'm going to do is she's gonna have it as a blanket or a sheet wrapped around herself, which makes it easier and harder in a way. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make the pose of the motion line first. It's gonna be kind of a weird one. I'm gonna have it like this. Her spine isn't in it, nor is her lower body. This actually is the flow of her arms. I'm gonna have a hand here. I'm gonna have a hand there. From this, I have enough information to pencil in the rest, because we know now her shoulders is going to be right here, because this hand is up, her shoulder goes up this way, right? This is the way her spine would curve, and she's sitting down, or you see? Yeah, she's sitting down, so we know that her butt will be about here, with her legs going down this way, with her head going about there. Okay, so from this motion, I've puzzled this out. Technically, this would be all you need to know if you want to have figure drawing classes and you're doing them somewhere at a college or a high school, or even just, you know, whatever. This should be enough to figure, you know, this line. And if you know which part of the anatomy it is, you know, I mean, if you go home with just this line and you go, was it the spine? Was it arms? What was it? Just, you know, indicate some mitten hands so you know which one is which. Put the thumbs where you want to go so you know actually which way your picture is going. Okay, now her arm isn't going this way, but I now know that her butt will be right here with her hips and stuff like that. She's got some sheet going around her like that. Okay. So, if I take my eraser, because I'm going to end up with a million foot of lines, and just lighten things up. Same lines are still there, it's just lighter. If I then go in, what I can do is, if her one arm is going to come right here, and I'm actually wanting it relatively straight. But where does this line come in? No. Her hand sticks out this way. And I'm not putting in all the fingers, not even close. I do know that if this is her whole arm, her elbow would be about right there. Well, did we learn about the elbow? That the elbow is roughly where her small of her back is. So we know that there's going to be a bend right here. We already knew that because her butt is going to be right there. See how you build yourself that out with knowledge that you have learned. Okay, so she has a sheet going in like this, with her other arm going up right there. Okay, her arm is kind of straight and up. She's kind of walking like an Egyptian here. Yeah. The lesson in this one is more of a what you call it? Find yourself a roadmap and follow it, and learn to draw what you know and what you have learned. You know, it's your information. Do with it what you can. It's important. From here, we've got everything that is relatively in proportion. You know, how do I know? I checked myself. This line. There's a straight line going right here. I've checked myself on this line, which is where her calf starts, like this, because her feet are up like this. And you won't learn this by just doing that at the top of your head. You start by using reference, because you can check yourself. Where's her waist? Where her crook of her elbow is. So if I then take again my black line, I can go in and start cleaning her up. And she's actually looking, she's on she's profile, so I'm not even gonna bother putting all that in because that's not the idea of this lesson. See that even though her, most of her body is hidden, we can still find her indicators pure about what we know. Pure about what we know, we can pencil something in that is incomplete, you know, because from here you would know that her whole leg would be like this, with her butt being right there. So if you know, and that's a good thing that will come in a different lesson about cloth and clothing, but if you know what goes underneath, you can draw the clothes, because we now know that this cloth won't go straight. Well, it has to curve because there's a curve underneath it. Okay, that's the most important thing about cloth, but I wanted to show you this guy because it was only half. It was hidden.